Welcome back to the Blame Game for the final week of the regular season for the summer split. I'm Mark Z, and each week after the LCS, I take a look at the top Reddit comments in the post-game discussion thread to decide if the blame there is justified or not. Now this weekend was supposed to be pretty hype with a potential three-way tie for the third seed, but due to Team Liquid's loss to Apex, spots 1 through 5 were locked in by the end of the second day. Kind of made the weekend a little bit less hype, and we'll be looking at one of the players from Team Liquid. I'll be doing a little bit of a blame game first by combining two different series that had the same comments in them basically. Coming off a disappointing 0-2 weekend, most members from Team Liquid came under some fire, but the most blamed individual was Fabby. The comments ranged from missing Piglet to wondering why he was so passive in team fights, but the question is, were these series his fault? We'll start things off by looking at Game 1 of the Apex series, where things were going pretty well for Team Liquid up until a blue buff invade at 18:30 into the game. It was a good idea as Team Liquid had priority in both top and mid, meaning that if Apex wanted to come contest the blue, they'd have to risk giving up CS to do so. Most teams wouldn't look to contest too aggressively as they prefer catching up on CS over a potential blue buff. Team Liquid looked like they were on autopilot as they ignored the Shen and Cassiopeia, who flanked by giving up CS in order to get in position and get a massive 4-for-0 as a result. This basically evens the game up until Team Liquid gives up vision control topside in order to secure a dragon at 25 minutes into the game. From there, Dardoch decides to get his blue buff and Gromp instead of heading topside to fight for vision and ensure that Apex isn't doing Baron, which they were. This results in a totally free Baron for Apex, who are able to use it to grab 3 more turrets and the gold lead. The game devolves into a little bit of a shit show, but Team Liquid ultimately loses as their comp is a little worse at team fighting late game, and there are some individual mistakes from Matt, Phoenix, and Fabby. In Game 2, Team Liquid falls behind early due to jungle pressure and a well-played skirmish from Apex. They hang around thanks to some decent macro decisions and eventually get into a scrappy fight at 19:30. Fabby and the rest of Team Liquid play this critical fight pretty well, which helps bring them back to even in the game. They snowball through the rest of the game and are able to close it out in just over 30 minutes. Game 3 starts out with an interesting macro decision by Team Liquid, who choose to match lanes in the lane swap after trading the first turret. The plan is to have Dardoch camp the duo lane who's exposed in the long lane, and it goes pretty well initially as they are able to get Alistar's flash. Dardoch loops around again to set up a regank while also looking for Gragas, who's a little bit ahead of him on the play, but due to a massive misplay by Fabby, it ends up being a double kill for Apex. Fabby dies with both summoners up right next to his turret, where if he was able to live just a little bit longer, I'm sure Dardoch would have been able to help try and clean up these kills. TL's plan also came at Lorlo's expense, who had to go into the long lane with the wave freezing away from him. The game jumps back and forth a little bit, but Team Liquid is never in the lead again and lose a couple critical team fights to cost them the game. Moving on to the C9 series, Game 1 was... I'm actually getting sick just thinking about that game. The draft from Team Liquid doesn't really make sense. The players play bad and all 3 lanes lose as they get totally rolled. Game 2 was closer, but Fabby ends up falling behind due to some questionable macro decisions in the early game. After getting first blood top, Dardoch decides to go bottom to contest his blue. He instead could have gone top to continue farming and pressure the already behind Gnar on the massive wave that Lorlo is pushing in. Diving or denying impact of this wave is the type of backbreaking play that you see out of Huni and Reignover when they have a topside counter pick, and it just isn't executed here. Dardoch arrives too late and just trades blues evenly as Gnar collects the wave. After that, from 8:30 till 11:30, Team Liquid drags Fabby around the map as Sneaky gets a freeze off bot side. That's basically a full 3 minutes that Fabby isn't farming or getting good XP while his team tries to pressure something that they already missed the ideal time to. It's hard to fault Fabby for falling behind here as both Matt and Phoenix have massive misplays in some team fights. Now after all that, you probably think I'm going to say that the blame on Fabby isn't justified, but there is something else at play here. Fabby has the least deaths of all AD carries, though he has played fewer games, but he also has the lowest damage per minute by an extreme amount. He's the only one with a damage share below 20%, and once again by a considerable margin. It's true he also has the lowest gold share of any AD carry, but the spread between him and Apollo isn't nearly as big as their damage numbers. Fabby works well in Team Liquid because he's a safe utility AD carry who sacrifices farm to follow his aggressive teammates around who control the game, but the amount that he's behind his peers is staggering. Having worked with both Apollo and Keith, I know that their attitudes and playstyles are similar enough to Fabby's, yet they continue to post better numbers on worse teams. His games are full of fights like this one where he doesn't get even a single auto off the entire time. Alright, I'll admit that's a little bit of an extreme example, but if you ever watch Fabby closely in a team fight, he's almost always backpedaling after autos and too concerned of enemy abilities. In this team fight, he stays so far in the back that there is no way for Team Liquid to decisively win this fight. The rest of Team Liquid plays so aggressively that it's easy to pin the losses on their blatant mistakes, but Fabby's consistently underwhelming performances hamper them much more. The blame on Fabby is justified. The High Five Comment of the Week award goes to Akior from the Phoenix 1 vs Envy thread. It's an interesting write-up on Envy and their problems, and while I don't agree with it 100%, I would love to see more of these kinds of comments and better recognition of them. That's it for this week's episode of The Blame Game. I know it was a little different as I only covered one topic in depth, but I felt like I had to do it that way to do it justice. Let me know what you guys think about that format in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Playoffs are 2 weeks away with the promotion tournament happening this weekend, and honestly I'm kind of 50-50 on if I want to do an episode for it. We'll see what happens and how I feel about it.